Hey friends, I've got 10 easy shabby cottage thrift flips, and this time I do have a reference post here if you want to pause it and go back to it to see when to get to the crafts that you like. Now this first one, the Letters to Santa box, came from Pop Shelf, and originally it was priced $12, but I went in there sometime in January and it was 90% off. They had several. I think I probably should have gotten several, but I didn't. I came home with this one, and I decided that it was a beautiful color. You know, I'm loving this green lately. It was a beautiful color that it could be used for spring, Valentine's Day, all the things. So, as cute as that was, that said Letters to Santa, I did decide to go ahead and cover that up so that I could use it for other seasons. Now, I had a paper doily, just purchased a package of those from the Dollar Tree, and I used them with some other crafts. But I made an outline of the doily just inside and underneath the edge of the doily because I didn't want it to show after I was done. And that's just chalk paint that I'm using to cover up the original art. And I decided that I would stick the doily onto the wet paint, and you know, that acts like a glue, especially the thin doily is so thin that it easily stuck to it. And then I took, if you could see except for my giant head, I took a paper towel and my fingertips, and when I was pushing it down, I was really surprised and delighted to see that some of that paint came back off through the holes, the cut work of the doily, and I loved that effect. So, you know, sometimes you have a surprise when you're doing a craft. You didn't expect that to happen. Now, I wanted this to look more weathered and distressed, and I do think that I'll go back and do another layer of some antiquing wax to give it an extra dark dimension. I'll wait till later in the year to do that. I liked it just the way it is for now, and I'm notorious for going back and doing things to crafts over and over again just because I love to craft and I have a new idea for something that I have already flipped. I just guess I want it to keep flipping. This wet paper towel did not take off as much of that as I wanted, and I ended up really liking the way the side edge over there looked, and the top and the rest of it. The bottom of it, I'm not sure why I didn't go back and do that. You know, my life is super busy right now. We're getting ready for my daughter Olivia to, well, she's over 6 months pregnant. We've got 2.5 months till her baby is born, and we're getting things ready for that. And I'm still helping my daughter Mallory, who has 3 babies. Well, she has 3 children, and the youngest baby, I do try my best to keep him at least once a week. So I'm pretty busy. We're also building my she shed. And that's a whole series that I'm trying to take some footage and photos of as it happens so that I can let you guys see the effort that's going into making that huge shed. It's going to be 16 feet wide by 22 feet front to back. And that's a good size shed built onto the original shed that's been there for over 20 years. My husband built the original shed. So, okay, now I've decided that it's going to need something cute and fun in the middle, and in my basket beside me, I still had that cute little decoupage wood heart that has a page of a real hymn book. Now, the hymn book that I cut this from was torn up in a pile of junk on the side of the road down the street. So I wouldn't feel great about cutting up hymn books that were in pristine condition, but that one was literally side of the road salvaged. So I saved the page out of that hymn book and put it on to that wood heart, and I loved it. I thought it was so sweet. Now, this spool of lace came from the Dollar Tree. It's just a crocheted, neutral, off-white looking lace, and I love it. I use it with a lot of things. So I've got the little bit of lace up top, and I want to add a little bit of lace to the top of that heart, just for shabby chicness, romantical reasons. Just a little bow, looked sweet. I guess you saw that I used the hot glue method, just tucked that jute string inside the box and let it hang over, just hot glued it on the inside. It is going on my front porch, but it's on the side wall that never gets any wind. At my house, I have noticed that the wind blows in one direction most of the time, and I wasn't afraid that it would fall off, and so far it hasn't. It's been out there several days, weeks. There it is. Okay, this is how it looked just before Valentine's Day. I did put a vintage Valentine. I taped it into the top as if someone was leaving me a Valentine. I thought that was very sweet. And this is how it looks with a postcard, an Easter spring postcard in it, which is also very sweet. Love it, love it, love it. The wood spool picks. Now, here are some images if you would like to screenshot these and use them for yourselves. Find these on Pinterest, from the Graphics Fairy. There's lots of online places that you can find free images, but those were some that I did use this year, so I did include that. And this little device that I'm using to straight edge cut, you can find these at Walmart. I've even seen this at Pop Shelf, but most craft stores or department store places have those, and that's the best way to cut a very accurate, clean line. I love it. This is some parchment paper, just a scrap that I decided would be pretty layered up with my little tiny vintage image of the Easter chick. And a glue stick is an excellent crafting tool because it is handy, it's cheap, it's easy to use, it doesn't cause your papers to be saturated like when you do decoupage. It's so wet, it bubbles up or wrinkles up sometimes. So a glue stick is a really good way to do that. Now you can see I've just got a little piece of a wood dowel stick, a little square stick, and I just set it in the vintage wooden spool. Here's the way the vintage Valentines looked in my china cabinet for Valentine's Day. And I even had some under a cloche, which I thought was adorable. So sweet. And then here's the wood spool, vintage wood spool with a little vintage image in there, just for fun. I liked that the top of that spool said Blossom. That was sweet. Okay, here is just a little genius thing that I came up with. It inspired me when I grabbed a screenshot of these spice jars with little tools. I saw that on a video and I just had to stop the video and screenshot it. Then it wasn't very long until I came across this. I guess it's a spice rack. I'm not sure if what else could it be? It has little indentations in the shelves. And then I took my spice rack inside Dollar Tree and found the little plastic containers, for $1.25 for 10 of them. So that was very inexpensive. All right, here is my leftover roll of Dollhouse wallpaper, but obviously Hobby Lobby has an entire aisle of scrap paper. No, scrapbook paper that you can choose from. Now, this doll paper had aging on the left and right sides. So I didn't think that that would be the look for what I was doing. So I did choose just the center of that image, of that piece of dollhouse wallpaper. And now I am cutting, and don't worry, I'm not cutting against my wood table. I just go through the first layer and then I turn it over and go through the next layer. But the styrofoam board from Dollar Tree, very useful. I knew that I was going to need a backing on my spice rack to keep the little plastic tubs from falling backward out the back. So I covered the styrofoam board with the pretty paper. And I did have to piece it there at the bottom because this particular paper, you'll see when it gets to be a close-up, it has little birds on it that I didn't want the birds to be sideways. I needed them to be upright. Okay, so here I am trimming off the excess, just with old scissors. That worked well. Okay, and my favorite friend, hot glue. I did just one edge at a time so that the hot glue wouldn't harden more quickly than I could get it all pressed down and in place. So that's why you see me doing it on 4 separate sides. Okay, those little tiny plastic bins, they just magically fit. I mean, I looked up. They just magically fit. I had spent an hour previous sorting from I have a tiny little drawer that I have for probably 20 years, been throwing all my miscellaneous little screws and nails and paper clips and safety pins and whatever else things. Now, I sorted those out into the 20 little tiny containers, and then I thought, I could make the containers even cuter. So I cut the paper to fit the tops of those. Now that's just the corner of my kitchen, and that's where I thought it would be handy to have nails and push pins and all the little things that I use. The wood buttons, I rarely use them, but they looked really cute in the little plastic container, so they got to be part of this. See the pattern? Isn't that sweet with a little bird? Okay, if you watched my great-grandmother's China pattern video, you will have seen, now I didn't pay $59.99, I paid $3. That was just a comparative listing. I paid $3 for those Scots Shelves, and someone had spray painted them silver. They were originally that gold, but I didn't love the silver, so I took elephant gray chalk paint as a base coat, and I put that everywhere, and there's a lot of little angles that I had to get into. It took me a little longer than I expected, but crafting time for me is pleasant, relaxing time, so I just settled in and painted all the edges. And then I took a little bit of black acrylic paint and I created some depth just here and there on the edges. This is one of those projects where I just kept putting layers until I liked the way it looked. I just kept going, just kept putting stuff on. There's a little bit of brown acrylic paint that is being layered in there. I think I'm kind of, in my mind, I was going for a really natural, not really a wood look. Okay, that looked kind of gold, but it wasn't. It was a nutmeg brown. Okay, now I'm using the antique wax to go over all of that. And the good thing about wax is it seals it so that it doesn't come back off. But the acrylic paint on top of chalk paint also helps seal it in so that it's not so chalky and matte, and it doesn't scratch off. But the look I wanted was to be lighter, so I used the Waverly White Antique Wax. And there's a lot of little detail and crevices that I had to get way down into. And that was the look that I ended up with. And it does match the picture frames that I have. Well, it's not the exact, but it's similar. It's in that same genre. It doesn't match exactly, but I didn't intend for it to. I just wanted it to coordinate with it pretty well. So that's how they look on my walls. Stamped bookends. I found these little bookends, my mega long thrift haul that you just saw recently. You saw that I found they had a $2 sticker on each of them, and there was just a little bit of confusion, but I did end up getting the pair for $2 from that thrift store, and I'm going to get those scraped off, and I love the color that they are. I don't know what to call that color. It's just it's a real gentle red. It's not pink. I brought out all my stamp kits and tried to decide what I wanted. I've got lots of lovely stamps. That was sweet. Liked that. You know, any of these would have been appropriate. Even if they were a little bigger, for it to hang off the edges a little bit is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way it is. Now the IOD stamps, that's what I was pointing out to you, that this was a set of IOD. The other was a redesign brand, but the IOD includes a clear template that you can place over your object and get an idea of what it would look like. In the end, I ended up going with the bee with the laurel crest, the leaves around it. And for a moment I considered using one of each, but I thought, no, let's just do a matching set. And I used my acrylic blocks. Those were purchased from Amazon, just ordered them from Amazon. And I love the method of using these because it helps you see exactly where it's going to go on your object. And something happened with this project that I've never had happen before. Now what you're seeing me do is I wet the back of that so it would, the silicone stamp, so it would stick on well. And I do use the Stays On ink, and that came from Hobby Lobby. That is a permanent ink. And I realized that it was at such an angle that I needed to prop it up with some books. So I just grabbed whatever books were nearby. At this point, I don't put more ink onto my stamp, and I think this may be why I had a problem. Look at there. It didn't transfer. I was like, what in the world? And it's almost impossible to line it up so that you get it, you know, you don't get a blurred or a double vision kind of effect. So I covered up the pieces, the parts that did transfer. I covered that up with paper towel. Now this has never happened to me before, and I think it's because I took the time to go get those books, and my ink may have dried in the middle of my image. So I inked it back up again, and I lined it up as best I could. And here we go again. Let's see if this will work. Didn't happen. So I was like, what in the world? All right. One more time. And it didn't happen. I was like, what is going on here? So I decided my bookend may have been a little uneven, like not a straight edge. So I lined it up, just putting ink in the center this time. I lined it up without the acrylic block so that it would curve to whatever uneven surface that was. And then for the other side, I didn't use the acrylic block at all. And I just tried to line it up evenly to match the first one, and it turned out perfectly. But I've never had that happen before, when part of the image wouldn't come off onto a straight surface. But it worked out fine in the end. I was just very surprised. Okay, so there are the cute little bookends, and I have styled them with some cookbooks on my shelves in the kitchen. So sweet. Super sweet. This was a very easy antique play mirror. That plastic mirror came from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted a little inexpensive mirror that my grandgirls could play with at that baby vanity. It, it had so much detail on it that you couldn't appreciate because the plastic was all the same color. So I wondered if this would work, and it really did. I just took my antique wax and I rubbed it all over and brought out all that pretty ornate scroll and carving, and it was a $1.25 plastic mirror. This is not an expensive thing, and I knew that it wouldn't be, but I wanted something that the little girls could play with. Somewhere in my world I do have a vintage silver one, but I kind of hated for them to play with that one in case it broke. Besides, I don't really know where it is right this minute. Okay, so I even did the edges, and I wondered if the wax would dry well enough to not come off on their little hands without sealing it. I thought I might have to end up taking it outside and putting some spray clear sealant on it. I'd have to tape up the mirror to do that, which you see I didn't bother to tape up the mirror part. Okay, so I rubbed some off, and then there was too much off, so I had to put more back on. I apologize for my gruff voice. I just have a gruff voice sometimes. Okay, so I let it dry a long time, and it dried perfectly. It does not come off on to my skin or the baby's skin. I say babies, their ages 3 and 4, nearly 3, nearly 4. And they love playing there. I bought them a fresh set of makeup brushes so that they could dip baby lotion out of that milk glass jar. Okay, here's a vintage frame that I thought was gorgeous. Really dirty, so I'm cleaning it up just with some regular Windex. And what kind of, I don't know why somebody put a print of the American flag. It had an inspirational quote on there, but that's not my style. That wasn't my vibe. But the vintage frame for $2, wonderful, very thick, like 3 fingers wide. Oh, it's nice. So here I am cleaning the glass front and back, and we're getting the pleasure of that. I wonder if that's a scene from the rebuilding of the towers at 9/11. It could be. I'm not sure where that scene came from, but that's what it's reminding me of. It actually is a page of a calendar. Okay, so I'm taking the time to clean all the however many years old, 100-year-old debris that's on there. Someone had just included paper and a calendar page, but the cardboard was perfect. So that's what I'm going to use as my base for the background. I found this adorable little girl on Pinterest and sent the image to Staples, and for less than $1 they printed out on cardstock. And then again with the leftover vintage Dollhouse wallpaper. And that came from Hobby Lobby as well. That's aged on the edges. So I needed to take my paper from the center of that sheet so that it would be even. I marked on it accidentally. It's okay. All right, so I'm just marking the edges of my cardboard, and I'm using my straight edge cutter again to make a perfectly straight, and you wouldn't really have to do this, but I'm just in the habit of using this for long edges, and it's just so satisfying, except that that's rolled up and it keeps rolling. Okay, it was purchased rolled up, so I just had to go with it. I just had to keep it rolled up. Now I'm cutting that off so that I'm going to just be using my little glue stick, and it's not even an Elmer's brand name glue stick. It's just whatever brand, Jot, J-O-T, that they sell at the Dollar Tree, and there were, I think it was a pack of 8 for $1.25 glue sticks, and they work perfectly. You don't even have to use an expensive brand. Okay, so I'm seeing where the staples have made indentions and making sure to use the opposite side in case that shows when I put it all together. Okay, so I line it up and I use the glue stick just on one end to hold it in place, and I do try to go absolutely thoroughly over every little inch. Okay, now that I've got that in place and it's all lined up, I laid that heavy frame over it so it wouldn't scoot. I don't think it would have scooted anyway, but just in case. Okay, now I'm going to do it in sections, going all the way down to just get a nice solid background. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't have a mat that would fit exactly to the image that I picked out. So if you don't have a mat that is cut to the correct size, this is an option that is fun to do, easy to do, and gives you a lot of creative license in the paper that you pick out. I loved that I had that really soft blush pink color. I thought that was really appropriate to go behind the image. Okay, now that's all finished. It's all ready. Turned out great. Just perfect. If you didn't have cardboard, you could use styrofoam board or even poster paper. Would probably be thick enough. Okay, now I'm going to cut the edges off where I had it printed, because I want it just to be the little girl at the edge of that vintage image. I guess this is a vintage Valentine, and I just enlarged it to fit close to the size of that frame. I knew I needed it to be just a little smaller so that my paper could show on all 4 sides. And it's not the exact proportions. Okay, I'm having to do a second cut there because I must have left a little teeny bit of white. I didn't want any of the white showing. I knew it wouldn't be the exact proportions because it just wasn't the same size and shape as my frame, but that's okay. Just center it with the same amount, left, right, top, bottom. Get it in the spot that you want it. And I decided that it would be really pretty. Oh, here I am measuring with my heart. That paper has polka dots on it, so I was estimating the number of polka dots. And then I used the end of my pencil to check, because it's just too hard to walk across the room and get the ruler. All right, now I'm going to do kind of the same method here, but instead of a solid amount of glue stick here, I'm just doing just enough to hold it in place because I decided that the edges looked really sweet, not completely pressed down into the background. They looked really sweet, just barely lifted, and I knew that even under the glass, it would look like they were just barely lifted. And that was a sweet effect, and I liked that. So let's see what it looks like under the glass. Sometimes I do not use the glass. I just take the glass away because I'm not that concerned about preserving the print, and I enjoy not having the glare or the weight, the heaviness of it. But this time I did save that glass, did decide to use it. Okay, got it put all in there, and I will have to go around and press every little staple back into place. I didn't speed up this segment. I just left it in real time. Okay, I'm shifting left and up and down to see where it might land, and it looked like it needed to be shifted as high as it would go this time. So I'm holding it in place while I press all those original little staples down. I love the old antique back of this frame. The wood is very sweet, and the old wire is sweet to me. I know nobody ever sees the back of anything, but I know it's back there. It looks so old, and I love things that look like they've just been kind of beat up. they've survived through the decades, and that's adorable to me. Oh, is she sweet? And then there's still little fragments of gold and wood chips and stuff that are just coming out of that old frame. So she's just precious. Now that's an adorable little image. I just fell in love with it when I saw it. And she is a Valentine's Day card, but she's going to stay up year round, I do believe. She's too sweet not to. She's too sweet. I have her sitting, that's the front of my upright piano, and I was just, I had some other frames out, just sitting around, playing with those. And there are some vintage Easter spring images that I also did the same exact method for those. Stamped drop cloth stool. I found this stool in the back of a thrift store, and the first day I saw it, I asked how much, and they wanted $10 for it. Now here's the original condition. It had this ugly vinyl over the top, and I didn't want to pay $10. So I left it there, and the next time I came in, it still didn't have a price tag. There was a different person working there, so I asked them how much, and they said $5. So it came home with me for $5. Now it's like an archaeological dig, taking off all the layers. Oh, duct tape, that's nice. And the foam looked so awful that I just took everything away. I considered leaving it like that, but then I thought I might get a splinter in my bottom. So I thought, okay, let me get my leftover foam and let's trace around it, cut around it. Hey, next time I'm going to cut it a little bigger than my stool. That would have been better. Okay, drop cloth, available everywhere. Ella says hello. She goes everywhere I go. Okay, now I'm laying my stamps on it just to see what kind of pattern that I wanted, and then I decided it'd be awfully fun to have a rabbit. So I have put pins where the edges of my stool are, and then I put pins where I wanted the rabbit to go exactly, so that when I took it away to ink it up, I could still put it back in the place that I wanted. And just showing you here that when I ink it up, I press it straight down onto it, and I do try to watch for places that I accidentally get the ink pad, and I wipe those off before I put it to the fabric. So I've got a little collection, just a little mix of stamps, and I did just gently fold under the drop cloth, and I was going to just hot glue it in place before I stapled it, but the hot glue was so well attached that it ended up just being hot glued. Cute, cute. All right, now here is an idea I came up with. Little wood plaque I thrifted, and I thought it was so sweet. I hung it with a little piece of, that's actually just floral wire, and I let it just hang from the top of my wreath. And then I had that extra little love little sign. Now I just pushed the wire up into the branches of that twig wreath. And then here it is with an Easter, a little piece of the Easter cut out, the printout, and a little bit of a little piece of a flower bloom that matched. And I could do this the rest of the year if I wanted to, but especially for spring, I'm going to switch out the little, whatever the decal is, or the little decorative focus piece. I did also glue pieces of felt onto the back of that wood plaque to keep it from making noise. Flowering faux tree. This was an inspiration to me when I saw it because I thought it was so romantic. And I have my pretty Crocs that I had previously, for Christmas, I had used little live evergreen clearance little bushes that I got from Walmart for, I think they might have been $3 or $4 a piece. They're alive. I'm going to plant them. Okay, I used a paper plate to cut out the foam board to make something solid for the top of my crock. And I wanted it tight so that it would stay in place. So I cut little slits all around the edges so that it would give just a little as I was putting it in. There's a natural rim there. Okay, so I marked the center, and I'm making an X mark with my utility knife, and I'm pressing it open with my fingers so that my branch can stand up. That's a sweet gum volunteer branch. No. What do you call it? Little tiny tree that came up in my flower bed. So I've been letting them stay there, just needing to be pruned away. Okay, look, I'm using books to hold it up straight. And I also ended up going and getting a couple of cans of beans to put in there to help hold it up straight. I've had these blooming stems from Hobby Lobby. I bought those for my daughter's wedding, and Olivia's wedding, and that's been 3 years ago. And I've used them several ways, several times, and I was ready to use them in a different way. So I first started trying to just hot glue them onto the actual branches. Well, there was a couple of problems with that. There weren't enough branches available for what I wanted to do, and it just looked terrible. That's a problem. So I took a tiny little drill bit and I drilled a hole at an angle so that I could put the stems or the ends of that bush, that flowering bush. I had 4 of them, 4 of those flowering stem bushes, and I used 3 on this one project. I thought I might do 2, but it was enough. 2 would have been too many in my home. I used the Spanish moss, covered it up, and I thought it turned out really nice. I thought it had a realistic, I cut the original branches pretty short, but I left them on there. I didn't just strip them completely away because that added some texture in there. And I did use the little leaf stems. And there it is in my foyer. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some good ideas for things that you would like to do, some crafts that you would enjoy adding to your home, or spending some happy hours of self-therapy doing. I pray that the Lord blesses all of you and draws you close to Him. I pray that each of you are blessed and that you enjoy every day that has been given to you, because it really is a gift.